I can hear the difference between an AKM DAC chip and an ESS Saber DAC chip. Even though everybody says that it is not the DAC chip alone that matters, it is the whole implementation. Well, I kind of a little bit disagree. There are certain sonic characteristics of these two brands, of AKM or an ESS Saber DAC chip, that just seem to be present. At least with all of the audio units that I have had so far, which had either ESS or AKM DAC chips implemented. Anybody out there who experienced the same, something similar, that you can actually hear the brand? Well, whenever I compare an ESS DAC implementation to an AKM DAC implementation, I end up with the same result. Always, with every unit that I have tried so far. When it comes to Sigma Delta DAC chip implementations, I personally prefer AKM DAC chips. Bear with me, I am not saying that they are better. I am saying that I personally preferred them. To my ears, the AKM DAC chips always had they were a little bit smoother on the edges, fuller and rounder in the music, more natural, more real. They had a finer and better texture and a more natural transience. And this triggers in me and the feeling of intimacy to the artist. And that creates emotions that I want to have when listening to music. So for me, AKM implementations always have a certain, I want to call it a velvety glow. But hey, maybe not everybody agrees. I actually believe a lot of people may disagree, and maybe others hear it quite differently, because tastes are different, and you know what? It is good that way. We don't want to have a world where everybody likes the same things. It will be boring. Leave a comment, tell me about your opinion, tell me about what you think about these two different DAC brands. Can you hear a difference? To the actual topic of today's video. Guys, today I want to present a beautiful, beautiful sounding digital analog converter made by Aune, sitting here to my left. The Aune S18 EVO, priced at a very competitive €840. This has a dual AKM AK4497 DAC chip implementation, and they are running in balanced dual mono configuration. And I even have the luxury to push this high quality DAC one step further up the HiFi skies by using the matching Aune SC1 EVO 10 MHz clock, sitting here below the DAC. The clock is priced at approximately €700. And yes, the clock makes a difference in sound quality, but no, it is not essential to have, because the Aune S18 EVO alone, without the clock, it's very good by itself, because it already has a most fantastic internal clock implemented, and because it sounds very refined. This is my third contact with AKM DAC chip implementations, and I like them all. My first AKM DAC was the Eversolo DMP A8, who I believe many of you have experience with as well, and I did enjoy this streamer DAC unit very, very much. The next one that I bought was the Gold Note DS10 EVO. This unit I still own. It is one of my reference streamer DAC units, and I have also reviewed it here on this channel, and yeah, obviously I like it very, very much. And now the Aune S18 EVO, my third contact with AKM DAC chips, and yeah, this unit may take it up to the next level because it has a dual AKM implementation. Let's see. The Aune S18 EVO converts digital bits to music in a quite refined and a very grown-up way. Nothing is exaggerated. Nothing is overly excited, and there's a certain delicacy and fine tunes in the music. There is a beautiful reverberation and a velvety, here's the word again, refinement in the details. It also presents music with body and heft. It is clearly a fatigue-free musical presentation. You can listen to music for hours going on, and this is what me and my wife, we do. We enjoy very much listening to music for longer periods. We also use the audio system for watching movies. And there, the reproduction of human voices has to be spot on. And yeah, it is spot on. Human voices sound very real with the Aune S18 EVO. The external clock SC1 takes the whole presentation yet again up to the next level with a pitch black and a silent background. But more about the external clock later. I want to start right away with one male voice, a male singer that I find impossible to turn off when I listen to on a good hi-fi system. Leonard Cohen, Leo Cohen. Let's take the song You Want It Darker. His voice has a deep rumble in this song, and with the right system, the definition, the articulation and the fine details and the intermittent breathing of his deep rumbling voice. Yeah, it's beautiful, yeah. That is Leo Cohen. Did you know his voice supposedly went down to 41.2 Hertz? According to the platform Range Planet, who actually measure these kind of things. In Leo Cohen's early work, such as his debut album, Songs of Leo Cohen, his voice was much higher. In the normal baritone region, it was only later in his career, in the 1980s, that his vocal range dropped into this subharmonic gravel. There is a note that studio engineers producing later Leo Cohen's tracks had to leave the high-pass filters open to capture the massive low-end room vibrations of his voice, which listeners in the studio described as a feeling like a vibration is going through the seats. Yeah, I like Leo Cohen. I like his voice. Back to the Aune S18 EVO. The build quality follows Aune's early classic arc-shaped CNC machined aluminum design, or aluminum if you live in the United States. It weighs a solid 5 kilograms, giving it a reassuring hefty feel in your hands and when you position it on the rack. Inside, Aune went with a dual AK4497 DAC chip implementation, and this is arranged in a mirrored dual mono topology. Instead of taking a modern, single chip or a ready-to-use off-the-shelf Delta Sigma route, Aune synchronized two classic velvety sounding chips to handle the left and the right channel entirely independently. There are two different analog outputs. There is a fully balanced XLR output delivering 4.9 volts and a single-ended RCA rated at 2.2 volts. The measured performance sits at the razor-thin noise floor of 2.6 microvolts with a total harmonic distortion plus noise of minus 116 decibel. Regarding the input connectivity, there is a USB-B, there is an optical input, there is a coaxial input. Optical and coaxial are the two inputs that I have used. There's also a AES IBU and Bluetooth. Bluetooth comes with the modern LDAC and aptX HD support. And for the internal clock of the S18 EVO alone, Aune runs all incoming signals, including Bluetooth actually, through their custom third generation phase locked loop PLL architecture. The signal is converted internally to I2S. All signals are converted internally to I2S. They are processed for low jitter by the I2S isolating transmitter and receiver before they even reach the DAC chips. This is stripping away source-dependent jitter, according to Aune, before the conversion even happens. The USB connection is processed via the UX316 XMOS chip, and again, Aune claims low jitter in this signal chain. I have not had a chance to try the USB connection or compare it to the coaxial. Anybody out there with experience to that? Anybody has tried the USB connection? Is it delivering better results than a coaxial connection? My source for the Aune S18 EVO was the ARCAM ST25 streamer, and I used it as a transport only, connecting it to the Aune DAC via a coax cable. And I like the ARCAM as a streamer transport very, very much. The streaming service connect functions were very stable and reliable. With my other streamers, I do sometimes experience, hiccups with these streaming service connect functions. Sometimes they connect and they don't. I want to pause a song and then I want to go back in a song and it doesn't really do it. With the ARCAM, yeah, this was quite a stable and reliable connection. However, if I compare the internal DAC of the ARCAM ST25, which is an ESS DAC chip implementation, to the solution of connecting it to the external DAC, to the Aune S18 EVO, yes, I do prefer the sound with the external DAC. But first, that is to be expected if you hook up a good external DAC. And secondly, it is also my personal taste here. I just prefer AKM DAC chip presentations. As mentioned before, others may come to a different conclusion in this comparison. The loudspeakers mainly used in the past weeks with the Aune S18 EVO were the loudspeakers here behind me, beautiful orange looking JBL L100 Classics Mark II. And oh my dear, I do like these loudspeakers and their character. They surprised me. And they were driven by GaN FET powered amplifier ARCAM SA35. But all the units that I have mentioned now will get their own reviews, so stay tuned, subscribe to the channel. These reviews are coming. The Aune S18 EVO all by itself, it sounds fantastic. The clock system in the Aune S18 EVO already is quite sophisticated. So one may think, why would you even need to add an external clock? Well, things can always get even better, right? How does the SC1 improve the sound? Well, there is an increase, to my ears, in precision. For example, in the reverberation of the tones, it's a bit finer, nuanced, and for me, very important, I noticed a darker and more silent background. Why does this matter to me a lot? Because what gets me going in music is a good dynamic range. I like dynamic in the music. I look for macro and micro dynamics, and with a pitch black background, microdynamics are simply clearer and more refined. And this is why the external clock matters to me. I like it. I have already mentioned Leonard Cohen's deep rumbling voice. Let me mention two other very different songs that I enjoyed very much with this system here. First, by Kalia Shintilla, and I hope I pronounce the coming names correct. I probably won't. I'm doing my best. So first song is by Kalia Shintilla and Yves DeVoe. The song is called Energy. I would put this genre, I would call this genre, I don't know, electronic ambient. In the beginning of this song, there are a lot of percussion instruments going on. There is a glockenspiel, there is a scraper, so there's quite a few rhythms going on there, and this complexity of rhythms, it needs precision, and this is where the clock plays out its benefits. The second song I want to mention is by British artist formation Uncle. The song is called Cowboys or Indians. Uncle's main driving force is James Lavelle, but there has been a plethora of famous guest musicians in this formation. James Lavelle is also the co-founder of famous label Mo Wax. This particular song, Cowboys or Indians, is co-produced with Elliot Power, Mink and EC, and I really hope I pronounce the names correct. Pardon me if I don't. This song, for me, comprises 4 different genres of music in one song. There's trip hop, there's hip hop, folk, and alternative rock. I find music of Uncle and all the partnering musicians on the different albums quite interesting. Why do we benefit from an external clock? Well, every digital audio converter relies on a timing signal to tell the DAC exactly when to sample each piece of data. Micro deviations in this timing create jitter, which in the analog domain manifests as spatial blur or harshness and loss of detail and washiness. I think I just invented a word. Well, you lose sound quality when the timing of the clock loses its precision. The SC1 EVO features a custom stress compensated cut oven controlled crystal oscillator, an OCXO. Stress compensated is a cutting technique, and the crystal is sealed inside a temperature controlled chamber to eliminate frequency drifts caused by temperature swifts in the room. The temperature inside this clock is a major factor for precision timing. I'm not much of a measurement person, however the key specs for the SC1 EVO are impressive enough. Jitter performance is measured lower than 200 femtoseconds in a bandwidth of 1 Hz to 1 MHz. We have 4 independent 10 MHz clock outputs. 2 of them are sine wave, measured at 5 decibels to 1 milliwatt, and 2 of them are square wave, measured at 9 decibels to 1 milliwatt. As a power supply, it uses a low noise, high current LDO linear power supply dedicated solely to the clock oscillator, which is completely isolated from downstream noise. It also features a DC power inlet if you wish to use your own power supply, if you have one. I have not tried other external power supplies. I only had it connected, to the main circuit with the internal power supply. How do we connect the 2 units? Turn both units off, connect the 50 ohm BNC cable, then you first turn on the clock. It needs to warm up, and secondly you turn on the S18 EVO DAC. Once the warming up procedure is done, you will see an indicator on the S18 EVO and the color changes of the display of the SC1. It turns green. The warming up procedure takes a few minutes time. Now I have experimented a little bit with the two different connections, the sine and the square wave connections, and I ended up staying with the sine wave connection. And guys, I want to be honest, there are really nuances of differences in the sonic presentation, and you need well-recorded music and a revealing system to actually hear these nuances. But to my ears, the sine wave characteristics, they sounded a bit smoother, a bit more organic and a bit more analogy, a bit more analog. The square wave characteristics were a bit more precise and a bit more analytical almost, and faster. The transients were faster and edges were a bit sharper. So the square wave connection took the Aune S18 EVO a little bit into ESS Saber territory for me, for my ears. And one other observation for a DAC, the S18 EVO actually gets noticeably warm to the touch. But then thinking about the power supply, yes, of course it does. The Aune S18 EVO uses an internal custom linear power supply that is built around a substantial 50-watt toroidal transformer. And it features a large capacitor bank. So yeah, it gets warm. I believe this is a very fine sounding digital analog converter. I really do enjoy having it in my system, and I sadly have to say that both units have to be sent back. If you are a fan of finely nuanced sound, beautiful articulation of details, nothing is sharp, nothing is edgy. It's velvety, smooth, and very much fatigue free, and it has a delicate refinement in the music. Well, then I believe the Aune S18 EVO plus the external clock are certainly worth a shot to be tested and tried out in your system. And I will end this video with the same sentence as all other videos. Do not forget to do the most important thing in this hobby. Enjoy music.